Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Hello, and welcome to Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast. I am your host, Bryce III, and this is my co-host, Liz. What's up, Liz?
Hey, welcome. Hi, Bryce. So excited to be here. And thanks, everybody, for coming, whether you're returning or this is your first episode. We're so thrilled to have you here. We are Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast, powered by The Phoenix, a sober, active community. And we're here to lift up stories from our community and beyond. And I'm going to pass it right back over to you, Bryce, to introduce our guests that we're so excited and grateful to chat with.
Oh, and I'll catch that pass real quick and really put this guest that we have up in the air. This guest here is a local celebrity. I'm super excited to to talk to her and have this conversation in public. She owns a podcast locally here. You know, if you all don't know, Liz is in Florida, Bryce is in Detroit. Liz has palm trees, Bryce does not. And here we have a few things going on this summer. One thing including is the Ferndale Pride. And so I met this individual through some collaboration that we're doing here with the Phoenix, putting together a outreach booth for the Ferndale Pride. And I actually listened to an episode of her show. And as soon as I listened to an episode of her show, I was like, okay, yeah, we got to get her on the Phoenix podcast. We got to get her on my podcast. We got to get her on all the podcasts. So let me welcome Courtney Andersen. How are you feeling? How's your energy?
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you. I mean, my energy is beyond now with that introduction and, you know, your intro that you did previous to just the three of us. I really like that, I have to say. That psyched me up. So thank you for doing that, Bryce.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you for bearing witness and not being weirded out by it.
Not at all. You are a crowd hyper. I like it.
Yeah, so here on the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, we like to kind of just delve into the stories of people in recovery, the stories of people in the community, and just kind of have an organic conversation. And I kind of wanted to start out with you, being a fellow podcaster, asking you the question, how did you get started with your podcast? And what is your podcast about?
Great question. So I host a podcast called Sobriety Podcast. And it just kind of the setup of my podcast is I do one show solo, I do one with a guest, and then my sister and I have a show within a show called Living on the Edge. Edge was my maiden name. And so my sister too also has addiction issues and is in recovery. So we thought it would be great to have the family unit, you know, of her and I experiencing two sisters who have addiction issues in the recovery process and how different it is, and especially to the relationship and dynamics in families, especially if you're coming from a family with addictions and mental health issues and all of that. So, and we use a lot of humor in that show too. So as anyone should use some humor in their recovery process, because you got to laugh about this stuff sometimes. But how I came about to doing the Sober Vibes podcast, I actually did a podcast with a person before that, and then her and I parted ways. And I still wanted to continue on with the Sober Vibes podcast. I still wanted to continue and make something my own. And then that's how I was like, I started with my Sober Vibes community in about 2016, 2017-ish. And then I was like, it's just time to keep growing and growing and growing. And people need to continuously hear things about recovery, because every day someone either, you know, relapses that day or they choose that day to start their path of sobriety and recovery. So, you know, this topic is it's a revolving door. And it's something that is not going to ever go away, and people need help with it. So That's how it started. I mean, obviously for me, I got sober in August 18th of 2012 and went about my journey of recovering from alcohol addiction and my whole process. So really Sober Vibes came out of that. And then Sober Vibes grew into what it is today.
Amazing. I think the thing that blows my mind most about my recovery and so much of the recovery community that I've been so lucky to meet, including the two of you, is the amount of people who take this thing that was like literally killing them and certainly pushing them into the shadows of the corners in just a place that was so shameful to start. You know, we're just so filled with shame and think that we're the only ones. And then we pull it out of that corner, out of the shadows, and put it in the spotlight, and then create this big, beautiful life around it. And for some of us, it also even becomes our career. For me, the most ashamed of is now the very top of my resume, the thing that makes me the best at what I do, and the thing that allows me to meet folks like you. And I think one of the things, just from the very little that I have been so lucky to learn about you, Courtney, is that you do that on such a big level. Like, you've created this community, you've created this podcast. And did I hear that you actually created a National Sobriety Day?
I did.
Where we all celebrate?
National Sober Day. Yep.
Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, that's September 14th of every calendar year. And the idea came to me in 2019. I actually was watching a reality television show, and this girl created Outfit of the Day. And I was like,
I liked you.
No shit. And then I was like, I wonder if there's a National Sober Day, because there's National Margarita Day, National Vodka Day, Wine Day, the list goes on. And really with National Sober Day, it's all about national awareness, not only to addiction, but national awareness of that there are people of all walks of life, of all different ages, living loud and proud in their sobriety, or, if they're anonymous, no problem, but that it is something to be celebrated. Because you tell somebody that you've gone without a drink for 2 days and it's like, yeah. But like, people don't get it. When you have an issue with alcohol and there is that, addiction to it, 2 days without drinking is huge. And those 48 hours of just like going through it and then going through starting the detox of it all and the mindset of it all. I mean, it's a huge deal. Any day sober is a huge deal. So that's why with National Sober Day, it's like, let's look at this as a celebration.
Nice. Mm-hmm. And taking the initiative to create a day.
Yeah, right.
Like, just the entrepreneurial mindset and like some of the circles that I'm in, like to get that inclination, but not only get that inclination, but carry it out. Like, I think that speaks to kind of the essence of recovery, where it's like, okay, we could talk about it all day. We could believe that this change should happen all day, but it's those who lean into it and take the action and bring that into physical reality that actually make those waves. And I think that's a beautiful thing. One thing I wanted to, I'm filled with questions for you.
Oh, yes.
Right? Well, one thing I do want to zoom in on is how you and your sister have the conversations publicly about how two people from the same household can have a different experience in the realm of addiction and substance use. And so, and I've often pulled out, like, especially when talking to like the youth, like, the worst thing you could have said to me as a kid is like, I've been where you've been. I was like, no, you haven't, because you don't know me. Like, just because you look like me don't mean that you've been where I've been or been through what I've been through, right? We could have came up on the same block. It was the same age and the same time and had two different experiences. So I'm curious as to what you've discovered having those conversations in public, having those conversations with your sister about like the differences between both of you all's struggles and triumphs with substance use and alcoholism.
Yeah, I think there's two things with the conversations. One with me and my sister, for her and I think it has become more of a healing process for her and I's relationship and understanding, because again, for my family dynamic, everybody's family dynamic is different, as you just said. But there's definitely in mine, like codependency issues, and I think that comes along too with addiction issues. So I think it's important for my sister and I in that of what we've learned that we're two separate people and that we're both allowed to feel what we feel and that is okay. And just understanding where she was in her active addiction and then her having that understanding and how her and I both choose to recover is how her and I both choose to recover and that we don't have to do it the same way. So I definitely just have to say, and it's been fun for us, but definitely a healing and a deeper understanding of each other's perspectives. On the flip side of that, too, I think with the show, with my sister and I talking openly about family issues and dynamics, it has given of just what people have sent in and said to me. They understand that they didn't think, they thought they were the only ones to have that type of family dynamic and that, they kind of went through something similar. So I think it's just important for the listener to have something relatable to, because the family topic is often taken off of the table in a lot of these podcasts. And a lot too of people don't go and touch that area because it's still so hush hush. And I think that's in the family shame of what probably happened. So the family dynamic is a touchy one because you don't want to say too much because you're just like, okay, well, that was like, how much do you say to respect? You know what I mean? So it is one of those situations, but I've just appreciated, people's feedback of how the show has touched them and how they can relate to it.
Okay, so when I ask you to share a bit about your own personal recovery story, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind of my recovery story is always my cat.
Please,
the best answer I never would have guessed.
Please expound.
I will, because you really have to be connected to your why when you choose to get sober, okay? Because it is a choice to make one day, like, am I going to continue down this path that I've been going? Or, am I going to go left or am I going to go right here? I have a decision. So when my decision came upon, it had to do with my cat Fiona. It was the second time I lost her in a functioning blackout, and I rescued this cat from the streets, Bryce of Michigan. You know how cold it is here in February. I rescued this cat. Here's somebody taking a little soul in. I'm supposed to be her mom, and I made a choice. So then Fiona was missing for 3 days when I got sober. When that last night that I drank, she was missing for 3 days. So I made a pact to the universe, and I said, if I find this cat, I will stop drinking. Also, too, my boyfriend at the time was like, you can make this choice, you can continue drinking, but I'm not staying along for this ride. So going back to Fiona, I found Fiona, and that was the pact. And the road started with finding her, and I stuck and have continued to stick to my word that I made to her that day of, if I find you, I will not drink again. And I haven't. So, but that goes into my why. So the one thing that reminds me of something I can describe or say is my cat Fiona, because I look at her every day. I think that's really important for somebody to, going back to understand, you have to burn that why into your brain and into your soul and to live it and to see it every day, whether you slap it on a Post-it note, whether it's your kid, whether it's your cat, whether it's God, whoever it is of why you're choosing to get sober. Or if it's you looking in the mirror every day, be like, I cannot go back there. Burn the why into your journey. You have to.
It has to be that thing that powers mothers to pull cars off of their, off of their child if they're in danger, because that power that is bigger than your need to keep your own self, safe and comfortable, because it really, it's like that part of your brain that keeps you alive is hijacked, and it says you need this thing more than anything else. Nothing else matters. But then, when you can find that why that you can put ahead of that, it's just like, I want to pull a car off this thing, off that is myself.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. And I'm a big animal lover. So that really touched me too.
Early on and too in my sobriety, you know, I wasn't connected with God. It made me uncomfortable. When I walked into my first AA meeting, I was like, this is uncomfortable. But also too, there was layers of shame, my heightened anxiety, like what to expect, you know, and then that's where I had to be like, okay, my higher power does not need to be God right now, because I don't know what that relationship is yet. But my higher power, something bigger than me, something that is not just me, is this four-legged friend, like this cat. So for a long time, she was just that higher power for me, or something greater than me, you know?
That was showing up for you.
Yes, that kept showing up for me.
That's big. That's big. That's big. So, and you kind of began to touch on it a little bit, but I did want to tap into what your specific modality of recovery has been. So you mentioned that you do 12-step meetings. Is that something that you still do? Is that what you started out with? How did you find that? And, you know, give us a little bit of breakdown with that.
So 4 years prior to me stopping drinking, I mean, I always had an inkling of that I had to quit drinking at some point. So I think that there is a level of awareness with any addict inside eternally. So I just kind of knew about of being talked about. I did go to a meeting that first week. I did those first couple weeks. And then, like I said, at that time, I just that's not where I was emotionally, just mentally, like physically, I did not vibe with it. And so then for, you know, a good year, I did white knuckled that thing. And then I started getting into exercising. And then I started getting into nutrition. And then I started getting into personal development. And then in my personal development, I started getting into meditation. And then I was able to go back to AA and participate a couple years into my sobriety, and I participated, and then I stopped going. And after that, I hired a coach. And then all through also too within this time as well, then I started going to see a therapist. I mean, I've been seeing a therapist since I was like 15 on and off. So then I found a new, and then I found a new therapist, you know, and then the Sober Vibes community was formed with all in that time. And then I found, you know, my recovery process too in my own online community that I created then I found some healing in that. So I love it all. I love it all. I mean, you know, I was never given that option of rehab because I had a lot of people who enabled me, and that was never presented. So I had to figure this thing out on my own. And each year that has passed, I've been able to either be like, all right, cool, I need to seek out help for this area, or I'm going to go back to what I learned in the summer that I spent in AA. Could I absolutely walk into a meeting today? Anybody could. That's the greatest thing about AA. You're accepted there at any part of your journey. But I really do like the coaches and the therapists. That's where I'm at currently in my life. But meditation has helped me, and personal development has been my best friends in this process.
Now I see why you two have found each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So many things that I think
it's so important. And I think you sharing that and somebody being able to hear that is so important, because it just speaks to the volumes of the different modalities that we could take. Like it doesn't look one way. And also, I don't know if you could speak more to this, but it's seasons.
Yes.
There's seasons of life. So there was a time when, you know, I needed this type of coach, but right now I need this type of coach. There was a time where I needed, like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 meetings a week. And now it's okay if I miss a meeting a week, you know. There was a time where, like, I was consuming 20 books in a month, and now it's a little less than, but maybe next month it might be a little bit more than. And it's like that continuously unfolding dynamic process of recovery, and listening to what it is that my spirit requires, listening to what it is that my body requires, listening to what it is that my presence in this moment requires, and adhering to what it is that I'm being told to do is like a process of recovery. And whatever it asks for, like being able to be willing to give it or seek it. That I think that's an important part of recovery. And I think a big thing that has been very useful in my personal recovery, and that I peeped that you had said, is that humor, fun. You use words like that, and like at the most, and that's one thing that I've learned at like 12-step meetings, because we can be in a meeting and somebody will say something horrible, and everybody at the table will laugh. And it's not like a laughing with you or even a self-depreciating laugh, but it's a laugh of knowing, a laugh of community, like a chuckle of like, yeah, I understand. And yet we still are here. And yet we're still going. Humor, like, and even in my own life and some of my own personal tragedies, it's like a bottom that I get to, where I get to the bottom of like the worst feelings that I've ever felt. And these are feelings that, because, I'm in recovery beforehand, I never felt these feelings. I ran from these feelings. I used to numb these feelings up. Now I'm feeling them all. So I'm learning how to deal with them. But it seems like at the bottom of each and every terrible feeling, like it's a chuckle. It's like, oh my goodness, like this is horrible, and then that chuckle it's like medicine. It's like medicine that allows for healing, So and I noticed when I listened to your podcast episode that it was a lot of humor in it too, like where it's lightweight, which is a part of life that we get to get back when we recover. So like, speak on how important humor is, how important fun is to your life, and what are some things that you use to cultivate more opportunities to laugh and more fun in your life?
Well, I definitely have to go with the humor thing. That is also a tool I've used in my recovery since day one. When days were very hard, that first year, whether you're white knuckling it or not, that first year is an extremely difficult time. You're like a new baby coming into this world that you've already been in for 29 years. And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do what without alcohol? Like, it's crazy it's a rebirth of yourself. But the humor, I don't know if it was a coping mechanism for myself with trauma in my life. I have just always laughed, even when stuff was at its worst. When I was a kid, like, just found the humor in it. So since day one of my recovery, I've had to look and use it as a tool of therapy. And whether that's even just taking a 60-minute break to yourself and putting on one of your like favorite comedy specials. I can't even tell you how many times I've watched all the Dave Chappelle Netflix specials, more than 4 times. Like, and it's just like, in the show too, and just to go and escape in that sense and lighten the load with some comedy and laugh, because laughing is one of the best things you can do for yourself, even if it's at your own expense. I mean, after the shame goes away in your active recovery, you then can look back and kind of laugh at some of the situations. Like, for instance, I've threatened to kill Matthew, my husband. He was then my boyfriend, became my husband. That last night of me drinking, that was probably like the 3rd night that I threatened his life. Now, do I remember it? No. Can we laugh about it now? Absolutely. Did I ever want to kill Matthew back then no, never. So like, I even brought it up to him last week. I was like, remember the times I used to stand over the bed and threaten your life? Like, when we laugh about it, because what else are you supposed? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because that's how involved I was in this addiction. That is where my addiction took me, into like this dark force. So like, now I'm going to laugh and use the sense of humor to just be like, I can't believe that was once me. So anywhere of just, to cultivate more fun in my life is to seeing with the mindset of what an amazing opportunity I have, that I am so fortunate to be alive here today, and that I've been able to live two lives in one. And all of us have, who are in, who have chose sobriety and active recovery. You are living two lives in one, and what a blessing that is. So to go back to cultivating more laughter and fun in your life, you have to cultivate that foundation of gratitude first. Because that foundation of gratitude is going to change your perspective and mindset, like a total 180, where you will be able to laugh at yourself when you think about when you wanted or said to your husband that you were going to kill him in a state of a blackout. You know what I mean? So it's perspective. And I just think that people, where you cultivate more fun too, is you need to figure out what brings you joy. And usually looking back into your childhood before stuff hit the fan, what did you like to do when you were a kid? Bring that into your active adulthood now and replay that. Start doing it, and then if that starts bringing you joy, you're going to have fun with it. And then you're going to start laughing a little bit more. And each day it just gets easier and easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like I'm still a baby.
Yeah.
like I'm coming up on 9 years, and I feel like I'm getting younger. Like I feel like I'm like a larva. Like I haven't even been born yet. It's so much to learn and so much to discover about ourselves. It's crazy. And I was just in.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bryce.
No, I was in Dearborn the other day. Sometimes I go to like downtown West Dearborn, and I just walk around and I just sing music and dance as loud as I can, and nobody bothers me. So I love it. Like I like to just do it, because there's certain areas where it's like if I did that, people are like, "What's wrong with him?" But like I and I've learned how to have this type of fun, this type of enjoyment, like by myself, like with me, and I continue to unfold by like just experimenting with different things.
I do daily dance parties now with my son. He's 7 months old. But honestly, because, when you become a parent, it's like then you start seeing some things in a different light. But also, too, it's just like, okay, like, Liz, I wish you knew the dark days of winter here in Michigan. So like coming out
I'm from Western New York.
Oh,
so
okay,
I do.
you got it.
Yeah. Lake effect snow. I mean,
yeah. Yep. So like, not only do we deal with seasonal depression, but coming out of this journey that I've been in with momhood of having a 7-month-old, I started feeling better come 5 months, sleeping habits. So I was like, I have to bring myself back up. And then that's when I incorporated my daily dance parties, and then the music that I'm introducing him to, like when I show him a picture of Prince, he lights up and he starts smiling. But that's because, I've used music for my own fun and incorporated that with him. So it is too, like, of just kind of what you were saying, Bryce, of just like you have to create a new type of fun for yourself, right? Because when you look back and you think of yourself in your active addiction, was that really fun? And the answer is no. It really wasn't. Like, how is that cycle that you were on for however many years you were on that ride for? That was not fun. That wasn't.
That's actually a great question. Like thinking about it, like meditating on it. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think, like I used to be excited about getting high, but it would be because I would be trying to feel a way. And I couldn't capture that feeling. Like that feeling would always come and go. Whereas like in recovery, the feeling comes, it doesn't, like it comes and goes as well. But now it's like, it's a constant. It's almost like it's there. As long as I continue to cultivate it, like it continues to show up. And it's not something I got to chase. It's something that kind of shows up in correlation to how I work for it and how I create the environment for it. It's like when, like you plant bulbs in some soil, and 9 times out of 10, like a flower is going to grow because you planted bulbs in the soil, right? But if you don't plant those flower bulbs in the soil, maybe weeds will grow. And it's like the more of an environment I create for fulfillment, for gratitude, and for high energy, the more of a probability that this is what is going to be in my life. Versus where it's like, okay, that time I had a bad trip. Let me try putting this together with this and see how high I get that way. Or let me try taking this and then going to a movie and taking this and then going to a concert. And it's just like I was just experimenting with like these feelings that never lasted anyway. That's interesting. I don't think I've never even asked myself that question. Like, was it even really fun?
Yeah.
Because everything I did then I could do now, but now I do it in like I can literally close my eyes and remember being in Idaho Springs last time I was in Colorado. Like I can literally like close my eyes and feel the feeling that I felt the last time me and my daughter went out dancing. I can feel the feelings that I felt the other day when I was in Dearborn dancing around in the city and walking by people, and just the joy that I felt and that I just wanted to say hi to everybody. And I'm super sober, and it's like funny to me because like I'm thinking, I wonder if people think that I'm tweaking. But I know I'm not, and I don't care what they think. Like that's the zest of life that recovery can bring, and the increased quality of life that can come when we actively, purposely seek to cultivate these opportunities in our lives.
And it's coming from inside of you. The reason you're able to like recreate that is because it's coming from you. It's not an external thing, and it takes bravery too, because I remember when I first got sober, I was sure that I would have no fun at weddings. I didn't ever want to go anywhere there was dancing, because I used to have dance parties with my husband. I used to go out dancing, with the girls, only ever under the influence. And so it was so scary to try it the first time sober, and it was so much more fun. And yeah, I was super grateful. And I also think some of that bravery speaks differently to women. And like, I think we make ourselves so small in a lot of the world, a lot of our lives. So like that alcohol can be kind of our invitation, or, whatever substance can take away some of those barriers we put up for ourselves and the society does. And we're able to be bigger and dance and be loud and things like that. And then to find a way to do that when you're not using a substance is scary and takes bravery and takes community. And it seems like that's what you've built with the Sober Vibes community. Like, is that a female community? Did I read that correctly, or is it?
Yeah, it is geared towards women. I mean, at the Sober Vibes Facebook group is just women only. And then, Instagram, it's geared towards women just because early on in that was what when I sat at the table in AA, I always just chose the women's table. That's where I found comfort. And then before I created Sober Vibes, I just would see some, I just saw some disappointing, gross stuff that was happening in these Facebook groups. And I just wanted to protect the ladies. It's nothing against men, because I've had a lot of people like say stuff to me like, well, do men not matter? And it's like, no, but there's a difference to men and women are two different emotional beings, and the way that they are just different. So a lot of women have trauma from men of what has happened to them. So I just wanted to protect the ladies in that.
I think that's so beautiful. I think affinity groups in that way, like, is within recovery is powerful. And I feel like if anyone could understand that, it seems like folks in recovery can, because even though we can get sober and be out in the world with people who are sober and people who are just supporting us, I'm there with my family and I can talk about the fact that I'm in recovery. They're so proud of me. There's still times that it is like different to be in that like space that's a little insulated and is just people in recovery, because we have a shared language and this shared experience. And then within that, to be able to have some communities where it's people that have had even more shared experience to you. Like, I think of like moms in recovery. That is a really specific experience. Bryce runs a group on our virtual platform that's dads in recovery. And that's a really specific experience. And like, there's so many different areas of that. Like, I know, we have Pride Month coming up and we're planning for that. And folks that are in the LGBTQ plus community and their experience of recovery is specific. And while it's wonderful that we're all together and, breaking down stigma and walls and barriers, there's still moments that having that space of people that have something that's such a big part of what your experience is powerful. And then to have somebody create that and hold it and protect it, I think is amazing. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any more that you wanted to talk about that, but I just think it's very cool that you've created that space.
Well, thank you. I love that space and I love what goes on. And again, it's, it is something that came out of my many, of seeing these early on recovery Facebook groups, to being in, participating in 12 steps from my own. It was really just listening and observing. I remember there was a group, it was a recovery group I was in, and my husband and I did go through 6 years of IVF, of trying to conceive. And I remember posting about, I used the F word. I dropped the F-bomb in this post. And
again, I knew I liked
yeah,
you.
I mean, I've been keeping it clean here. So I dropped the F-bomb about just a frustration, and I thought I was talking to my people. And this woman commented, and she said, well, with a language like that, you shouldn't be a mother. So that's when I was like, this is part of the reason why I created what I wanted. And I really think at the end of the day, whether you're, male or female, Sober Vibes is just an empowering where you're at, because you can have 5 years one day and that can be taken away in a blink of an eye. And there you are back at, if you're a day counter or not, but you're back at ground zero being like, what did I do? Or you're back at ground zero and in the middle of a relapse for a couple of years. I mean, this is not guaranteed to any of us every day. So I just really wanted to do more of an empowerment, less judgmental. Let's just support each other. Did we all go to bed sober that night? Cool. Yes. Whatever you did to get there, that is your side of the street, not mine, So it's just more of like, let's look at this as something different than doom and gloom, and just, just being happy and supportive and positive in a way of, not going on that toxic positivity side, because there are days where it's like the shit is the pit some days, but it's better than being hungover or in one of your worst days of your active addiction.
Yes. Life on life's terms. Being able to show up for life on life's terms, and not like because I used to put mask on. Like sometimes I'll put a mask on and I go in this room because this is the room I had this mask on, and then it just became this unsustainable thing. And it's like I come to this room with the wrong mask on, and they're like, who are you? Like now I can just like be myself. Like no matter if I'm happy, I'm sad. I'm going through it. I'm feeling like flamed up. Like I can show up and have the experience. And I think, what you all were talking about regarding like a woman's experience, or, how the dads group, like there's these, these pockets of where there's unique experience. And to speak to, there's a couple of things I want to speak to, but to speak to the person saying what they said when you said what you said in a group, and and then you used your exact words, and that's why I created what I wanted, and that's what I've come to find recovery as being, like creating what we want. Like instead of trying to fix you, and also instead of being like, dang, I'm disappointed because I thought this was this, and now the world is against me. Woe was me. I created what I wanted. And,
be the change.
Yeah, no biggie.
Oh, just creating what you want. And then too, of like what I listen to, like listening to people and actually really listening, because when I sat there at the tables that summer, I was like, there is more to life than this. That's what I'm saying. This is not doom and gloom. You didn't just get sober to go home or go to work, go to a meeting, and then go home. I mean, I heard many women be like, I wish I could put myself in this situation, but I didn't have anybody I didn't have a sober friend to go to. Like, or if they wanted, this woman talked about going to a Detroit Tigers game. And it broke my heart literally, because I know there are people out there who cannot put themselves into an environment where there's alcohol. And in that summer too, I created, and I couldn't sustain it because it was so hard to get people physically, but I created in the Detroit Metro with women I knew in the AA and the table I was at, a sober social club. And we tried to meet once a month at a place just to go out and do something. There should be a lot more of that. And I know you guys do that, with the free activities you put together. And that's what we should be doing. Like, get out there and live. But there's a lot of living to do in the second life, So.
Enter the commercial for the Phoenix here.
Let me say this really quick thing, Bryce, and then I'm going to just do a commercial for the Phoenix, I guess. Well, I was going to, gave me such a nice little lead in. I was going to say so much of everything that we're talking about that you've done, Courtney, like finding all different pathways to recovery and seeing the value of community and finding fun in recovery. And like all those ways that you've like empowered yourself and others is so much what the Phoenix is all about. And it just shows me again and again and again that, we talk about the Phoenix as a movement, like, it's not just an organization, it's a movement, but it's not a movement that we're like in on our own and, come and join just us. Like, this is the cool thing about this whole recovery thing that we're doing, that we're all part of this movement. Like, you're part of we didn't start it. We're just excited to like feed it, and be part of it. And so even if you're not part of, even if you're not in Sober Vibes or in the Phoenix, like whatever you're out there doing, like you're part of the movement. You are part of putting this out here loud and proud and having everyone see that it's a superpower. And
I wanted to speak to too, because like that was a big thing. And like when I work with others, like that's a big thing that I press for, because out of everybody I came out of rehab with, and the ones that I stayed in contact with, I think one shares she still shares our sobriety date. And, I look at her experience and, I see how like there's some ways that, because you'll see it was like, we was at 6 or 7 years and you see she was still on Facebook and was like wondering if she should tell these people that she worked with that she can't go out because of this or like, and I've just learned that a big part of my recovery is being able to go wherever I want to go as long as I belong there. Like, I'm not going and hanging out, at the strip club. I didn't go to strip clubs when I was actively using. Like, why, why would I do that now? But like, if I have a purpose for being there, and a purpose can just be fun. A purpose can just be cultivation of like a peer group or going and doing something different. Like if I have a reason to be there, I can be there. Like, there's no place that I can't go in recovery. And to be able to have stuff like the Phoenix too, that's like, okay, but then let's put a modifier on some of these spots and let's go to, we went to a Pistons game back in February here. We took 50 people to a Pistons game. Yes. It was a Phoenix program. Only requirement to show up was 48 hours of sobriety. We took a shot on the court. It was cool. In recovery month in September, we got this game, DCFC, the Detroit City Football Club. So there, and we're going to have like a interaction because it's recovery month. So we're working on putting these bigger things together here in Detroit and, nationwide, so that, if you need an on-ramp, like, let's go together. 50 people on the same wavelength as you. Let's go together. And then maybe that'll show you, oh, well, if I just wanted to go to a baseball game by myself, like, I can go and have fun, because wherever I go, somebody's going to be doing something, right? So, but the world is mine. The world is open to me, and that's where recovery is.
Freedom.
Like, that's the greatest thing with providing those events. You are giving somebody confidence to go there, experience it, and then being like, I can do this on my own. I can go and try it, and it's just like, that's the greatest thing. And then that they see, because, it's so easy just to keep instilling fear into your mind, being like, well, telling yourself and getting into your own thoughts, because addiction it's a thinking disease as well. And so then you're just thinking like, if I go there, I'm going to relapse, because people probably had people telling them, if you put yourself in this situation, you're going to relapse. That's where everybody's situation is different. So just giving people confidence to be like, no, you can do this. Get out, experience the world. as I said, you did not just get sober just to stay at home. You didn't.
Yeah.
There's too much beauty in your road to recovery and sobriety. There's too much beauty out there to see and to experience. So,
yeah.
Amen.
Courtney, I feel like as much as I'm in this recovery world and obviously part of the Phoenix and some experience with 12-step, I haven't had a lot of experience with coaching, and just I would love if you would mind just talking a little bit about what recovery coaching looks like, because I think that's an area that's relatively new and folks might not know as much about what that is.
Coaching is not like therapy or any of that, and I have to always say that to you. I am not a therapist. I'm not here to give you medical advice. But with my type of coaching, I'm here for accountability, support, and empowerment. And a lot of women, because that's who I gear towards, a lot of women don't have that accountability. A lot of people who've had issues with or have issues with alcohol have been enabled, or there hasn't been that quote unquote of what people think a rock bottom. You weren't put in jail. You didn't get a DUI. But I have to say to everybody, anybody who has a problem with alcohol and identifies however you identify to it, we all have rock bottoms with it. It just looks differently in everybody's life. So someone with crippling anxiety the next day after a night of drinking, if that's why you choose not to drink anymore, that's your rock bottom. That's just how it is. So that I feel how that should be looked upon. So for coaching, it's just, again, going back to people need accountability outside of themselves. My coaching, as I said, is a lot of accountability, support, and empowerment. I'm there we talk about what's going on with you that week, work on triggers, work on boundary setting, work on reasons of why, you used alcohol to cope for so long, working on solutions of getting you to feel your best every day, getting you into alignment in something in your own recovery path. And what does that look like for you each day? Does maybe even getting in alignment mean just resting for 2 hours? Absolutely. Have you ever allowed yourself to rest for 2 hours? I mean, this is stuff that women come to where they're just like, oh, I shouldn't feel bad about just laying down for 2 hours. I was like, no, absolutely not. Lay down. And I'm there to call people out too on some BS. So that is what my coaching looks like, Liz. I can't speak upon everybody else, but that's my approach to it. I can't say that we're going to do this, this, and this because I have to figure out what works best for that particular person, because what works best for her might not work best for the other one. Perfect example. I had a client. She did coaching before, like 2 years later, she found me and she was like, I don't like journaling. I said, okay, what do you like to do? I like to sketch and paint. All right, I'm going to give you this. What is your why? So I want you to sketch or paint that out. I'm not going to have her do journaling after she just told me she hated journaling. Like that obviously didn't click in her brain. So it's like, I can't take that same format to each person, so.
Right.
No, you're gonna journal and you're gonna
write this journal prompt. Give me 3 paragraphs. It's just, you just have to look at what fuels the person, what brings them joy. And if journaling doesn't bring you joy, you're just going to hate it more. And then that hating, it then turns into resentments, then turns into getting into your mind, thinking that you're never going to get past this, where it's like going back to the whole fun. If that is something that brings you fun, let's do more of that.
And just to add on to that, as a fellow coach as well, we got a lot in common, Courtney. As a fellow coach as well, what I'll tell my clients is then when we focus on the things that bring us joy, it's amazing how sometimes that joy overflows into something like, say, journaling.
Yes.
Like, you know what? I feel so good today. I'm going to try to journal. I know I hated it, but let me see what happens. Mm-hmm. But like when we focus on the thing that we're dissatisfied with, when we focus on the thing that doesn't bring us joy, we amplify that as well. So that leaks out on everything as well. So like that gratitude is the freest, most powerful tool that we have to access to. I 100% agree.
And that's one thing that with all of them, no matter what, with every person I've worked with, it's like, no, we're doing a gratitude thing. Because gratitude, I like I have said, I was like, you don't have to journal for paragraphs and paragraphs, but you can write 3 simple things that you are grateful for today, whether that is a warm cup of coffee, talking to the 2 of you today, the sun shining in pure Michigan, like these are 3 things that I'm grateful for. You know, it doesn't have to get complicated. And I think that because there is so much information out there and there's so many gurus and people telling you like, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way. Like you just have to find what works for you, but you can simplify that whole gratitude process because it doesn't need to be difficult. I was doing gratitude for a solid year every morning. I wasn't even at the point where I wrote this out. Every morning I woke up sober. I said, thank you for another day sober. And that's what I started my day off with, you know, so don't overcomplicate gratitude.
Yes. It doesn't even need to be overcomplicated for real. It is the simplest, easiest, most powerful thing in the universe.
Yes.
So we want to respect your time, and this has been one of my favorite conversations thus far on this podcast. Want to get into how we'll be able to find you after this. Where can we find you? Where people can listen to your podcast at and get involved with your coaching. But there's this question that Liz likes to ask when we get to the end of the podcast episode. So I was about to attempt to ask it, but I think it's just I think it's a Liz thing, man. Right. I think Liz got to do it. I think she does it best.
I think you just like that I can't ever remember how I did it last time, so it's going to sound different every
I know
episode.
It sounds different every time. I'm so amused every time. It's good.
Well, the question that I like to ask, which I know is not unique just to our podcast, but what is a message that you would give to a previous version of yourself at some point in your past? If you could reach back, doesn't have to be advice, doesn't have to be anything except for what comes to your mind and to your heart.
This question comes up, and it comes up on podcasts that I've done, and it's same every time. And it's the fact that even if you're asking me to talk to myself, I have to also to talk to the woman out there who is suffering and doesn't think that they're good enough, and has had suicide attempts or wants to die, or and it's just like, do not give up on yourself. You have to put the fight in. If sobriety is the road for you, please just keep fighting another day sober, because then those little days add up, and then you look back and you're like, well, shit, it's been a year, and so much has changed. So it's just like, don't give up on yourself. People are so much stronger than what they give themselves credit for. So I'm speaking to that woman.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely advice. Lovely, lovely suggestion, and lovely way of asking that question, Liz. You did.
Thanks. We'll never hear it that way again, so I hope you enjoyed it.
It was good.
Well, Courtney, thank you. If you want to wrap us up with how folks can connect with you if they'd like to, and we also will obviously have information and links in the show notes. But what would you like to throw out there?
Yes, you can follow my Sober Vibes account on Instagram. I have the Sober Vibes Facebook group for women only. Then there's the Sober Vibes podcast you can find on. I put that thing up on all of the platforms. But major ones are Spotify and iTunes. And then you can, if you're interested in coaching, you can go to CourtneyRecovered.com and then find my coaching information there. And
awesome.
Bryce, and then remember, September 14th is National Sober Day. So remember to celebrate that. And Bryce, I'll be seeing you in person soon, Bryce, but definitely we're going to talk about a little Phoenix, Detroit National Sober Day party.
We gonna do some. Me and Courtney got a lot of things in the works.
Yes, we do.
I'm pumped about this friendship. I might have to come to Detroit and visit you.
Come to Detroit for the National Sober Day party.
I don't know. Will it still be warm?
Yes.
It'll still be kind of summery.
September, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, but it's still beautiful. It's still nice. It's a fall. We're not bringing you here in like the winter time. So
I do miss fall. Yeah.
So it's still nice. I've wanted to do a party for the past 2 years, but it just did not play out. So I'm hoping this year we do something.
Hey, I hope so too. Well, that's incredible. I'm definitely marking my calendar. I think everybody in this community should too. And yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you. So I'm definitely grateful for both of you and for this conversation. Thank you, Courtney, for sharing so generously.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and I love this conversation as well. I love the energy in this group.
Thank you, Bryce, for being your wonderful self.
Oh, no, thank you all for the wonderful energy you gave me for the day that I'm going to take into the rest of my day.
Hey.
And thank you all for tuning in to Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast. I didn't call it Rise, Recover, Live, the podcast that time, so that's a celebrate. That's the thing to celebrate as well. You all have a wonderful whatever it is that you're day, night, morning, or whatever, and we will catch you next time on Rise, Recover, Live.
Will. Yes, make sure to check us out on thephoenix.org, download the app, and join us in your community or at a class online. We'll see you next time.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.